So this is a quick video to show you how to use a book of centuries or a timeline of the world. Why I prefer the book of centuries is because of the precision. A normal timeline will just have a linear line with the dates across it. And the child has to kind of draw a connecting vertical line and kind of write this and then go down here. And then history is not just perfectly spread out. A lot of the time it will just be a ton right here. Like so many battles happened in the Civil War, just so much stuff. And so then it just becomes like a mess. So a century book allows a year for every box. Every box represents 1 year, which is pretty incredible. Sometimes things align on the same year, like we know of different things that are pretty popular all happening in the same year, but typically that person was alive the year prior. So I either like put it in the box above, or if it's small, I can write small and put them on the same box, or put one before or after. But the value of a timeline is that it allows students to see how the history of the world, as they continue their studies, how the history of the world will tie all together. They can see, wow, at the same time that these patriarchs were, we begin the Bible with these patriarchs, like the pyramids were starting to be built. So we can start to see how history will align. It's kind of like a fun surprise. You open up to put a plot on your date and you're like, oh, wow, that was happening at the same time because you'd written something in your last lesson. And it was from a different part of history. Maybe you're studying ancient Greece, but you can see how it lines up with the Bible, or what was happening in ancient China, what was happening over in the Americas, like all at the different time. So that's the value of a timeline, is to see how it lines up. I recommend, if you're able and you have wall space, to get a huge, and do a linear timeline, get a huge one so you can see across the span of a world. But this is something portable. Students can put it in their backpack. It's got this lovely little strap that I always think of my son when it comes to durability. Like, if it falls, it's going to stay closed. It's got the rubber band. It's a hardback and it's smooth. So or glossy rather, so you can wipe it if you have a need to wipe it. So that's all really important. So it was built with durability in mind, that this would hopefully last a very long time, if not a lifetime. So this can even be something they take to college with them if they handle it, at least hopefully somewhat carefully, and keep it nice. So let's just give an example. Well, let's first look how they work, and then I'll give you an example. So we start with BC, and the dates get smaller as you head to 0. So we have and this is the big delineation between BC and AD, is the dates are on this side, and then we have this lovely blank page. This blank page can be for gluing in timeline pictures. You can write your thoughts about the century, like, oh, this was a very chaotic century, or a lot of wars were fought. You can write prayers. You can write key Bible verses. There's some Bible verses that God directly says to different groups of people, and maybe you want to have that in there. Maybe you want to have your own drawings, like you would like to draw some Egyptian pyramids, or draw a person that is in there. So this is really for whatever you want to make it, with just a free space to add your thoughts. There's also things that wouldn't really maybe go over here, like maybe there's specific pieces of music that you wanted to write down. You could put those in there, but there might be things in the instructions I suggest that might not fit so perfectly as like a name or a date of a person. You could do notable art, music, movements, ideas, events, discoveries, developments, poets, drama, literature, books, or artifacts. Maybe you want to list like 10 of your favorite books that you want to remember. This book came from this century. And remember, a century is 100 years. So every one of these pages represents 100 years. Every box represents 1 year. And you can draw pictures or people. So that's how this works. So BC on this side, and then your blank page over here. When we get to 80, it flips, and we have our blank page over here, and then we have our dates on this side. And the dates are getting bigger in AD, so they're increasing. So over here, so it will start with 5 and build to 100 because we're growing. In BC, it's the reverse. It starts with 100 and builds to 1. So 100, this means the 100th year of the century. So this would be 2500, and it's going to decrease. So 100, so this would be 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91. Moving backwards, so 2000, 2,499, 2,498, and so on and so forth. 2,495. Let's go here. 2,455. Go down to here. 2,405. 2,404. 3, 2, 1. And this century ends with 2,401 BC. The date we're going to look at today, let's say I was teaching in this class Abraham, and I'm gonna want to talk about Abram, or Abraham rather, when he gets his call. So the call of Abraham, that this book tells me it's 2000 BC. These little homeschool in the wood timelines, I love them. This woman has made a picture for nearly every major event. I would say every major event in person in history. She's drawn these little like simulated woodcut drawings. So I'm going to go over, I'll follow hers because I'll be pasting this picture and I want them to match. So she says 2100 BC and I feel like that's fine. So 2100 BC is pretty easy. It's going to be right here. So I'm going to get my pencil and I will write the call of Abraham. All right, the call of Abraham. And so that happened in 2100 BC. Then I have this little picture. Now I've already colored it with colored pencils. I recommend colored pencils. This one was actually done by a child, so it's really sweet. I took it off of our major wall timeline, just for quickness and easiness. So this is actually quite old. But they colored it with colored pencil, and you can just get, I think it looks a lot prettier than using harsh markers or crayons, which are so fat. So I highly recommend only using colored pencils when you're coloring these little guys, if you're going to use them. Then so again, I had just pulled it off our timeline, but when you go to put it on the back to glue it, you do not want to get your glue stick and right here on this glue all over, and then your glue is going to be sticky on the sides because who's that precise, right? You really want to get to the edges, and then you're going to glue all over it. You're going to close your book, and the residual glue that you had on the outside is going to glue your book together. So get yourself a scrap piece of paper, maybe the paper you just cut this timeline figure off of, and glue all over. This can get thrown away, and then you have just glue on the edges, and then you stick it in. Do not use anything but a glue stick. Wet glue will cause your page to warp. Wet glue just has that thing with it. So then the back side of this page is going to be, when you come over here, it's going to be all warpy and all crispy hard from the wet white glue. So use glue sticks only. Typically, like if we look at this one, if I can get it focused, well, you guys don't have to see it, but I can see it. There is nothing on this one that says it's archival. Some cheap glue sticks will stay, they're archival safe, just that some products can cause yellowing in pages. So if you're really concerned about this lasting a lifetime, it was even like Costco used to sell a huge set of glue sticks that did say archival safe. Acid free, I think is, or like pH acid free or something is what you were looking for. I haven't done this in a long time. So if you're in a pinch, whatever, use a glue stick is my biggest thing, is use a glue stick. Don't use the wet glue. And then you could glue this little picture in here. And as you start filling out this page, more little pictures will pop up. That's a lot of fun. For me, a timeline becomes almost like a passport stamp. Like, we learned this thing and here it is for all of time now that I learned that. And that was something that I learned. I owned that. That information is now mine. And we're going to see it go all throughout history. I would challenge you in all of your classes, even if it's just reading literature and you're reading Shakespeare, put Shakespeare in here. If you're reading a famous poet or author, put them in here. If you're doing Christian studies, like for sure, Christian studies and history are huge, because in Christian studies, you're going to get nothing but historical people and dates, right? And they belong in here. And then in history, of course, you're getting people and dates and they belong in here. If you're at home watching a movie and it's historical, put the date in here. You learn that information. If you visit a monument and you went to a battlefield or you learned something special, put it in here. The founding of Arizona, and you went and saw the state capitol or something, put it in here. Make this become like your passport of learning, and it's a demonstration of all that you've learned. I hope that was helpful. Have a great day.